Good. Byron Gillum. I write the daily newsletter for Blockworks, which is a crypto media company. I've been doing that for about 2 years. Before that, I was an equities trader for investment banks and brokers for about 20 years.
You know, in my case, sometimes I just hear from friends or I just talk to people. I think just in general, word of mouth is actually very impactful in media or as a form of media. So, we really want to jump in and, well, kind of lead to the first question is to promote credible content and stop the spread of fake news.
All right, Scotty, I thought we were doing all softball questions. Yeah.
Well, the answer to this is blockchain. So,
well, the good news is we're gonna solve fake news in this panel right here, right now.
yeah, we're sorry for holding the solution from everyone for all these years. We're trying to patent it, you know.
Yeah, so I think, where I come from with this is just like kind of looking at the current landscape of media, how it's evolving. Obviously right now the majority of content is being consumed in the Web 2 sphere. So, I think the most recent development that I've seen in that world, that's definitely a step that I think is a step in the right direction, is Twitter's community notes. I think it's, early stages there, and definitely, it remains to be seen how effective that'll be in the long term.
For you, as a bit of a skeptic, do you see possible ways for blockchain to be incorporated into media, and then in a way that can really create a positive impact on how viewers and producers, just the interaction between them?
Yeah, I mean that's another perennial blockchain use case is disintermediating the gatekeepers and creating direct connections between creators and audiences, and that sounds intuitive and great as a thesis, but I'm pretty skeptical of that one also. I think if you take the most obvious sort of use case for Web3, everyone always says like decentralized Twitter, and I think that's a good intuitive way to understand what Web3 is. But if you think about what decentralized Twitter would be, one, it just wouldn't be very good, and two, I think if you think about the data that Twitter uses, the Web3 idea of you own your own data, and that's surely everyone would want to own their own data. But if you think about your data that Twitter uses and monetizes, that data has no value to you. That is Twitter figures out how to give that data value by combining it with everybody else's data and putting it into their algorithm. It's their algorithm that gives your data value. Your data does not have value in and of itself. I've had a Brave browser. I've been using the Brave browser for years, and I've accumulated about $4 of credit or of Brave tokens. It's not. There's just really nothing you can do with it. I think it's Tim O'Reilly who said data is an oil, it's sand, which the idea being that the actual the individual bits and bytes of data don't have any value on their own. It's only until you put them into a big mound together, which is what Twitter and all of the others do, that give it value. And it's Benedict Evans who says that I think he says even that data doesn't exist or data is not a thing or something like that, which is a little bit he's exaggerating a little bit. But the point being is that your data really has no value. So I'm a little skeptical of the whole Web3 thesis of owning your own data. I'm not sure that's that big of a use case.
And interestingly, Joe mentioning you'll work on the podcast with Adam, not necessarily that you believe the opposite, but in this case you are creating IP, you're creating something you want to copyright and protect, so not necessarily that you have to believe the opposite from Byron, but you actually would have to consider, in this case, the data, the stuff you're creating, in a sense, how do you own that? So what's your viewpoint here?
Yeah. Well, I already sold the rights to Adam's podcast. So
well, congratulations.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I think I'm definitely on board with Byron's Byron's assessment, like, and in terms of like where the current landscape of the creation of media is like very much, it's, you know, it's large centralized actors that are fronting the money for, you know, the production of what becomes valuable IP. So, you know, there's the incentives and the structure of all of that is in place to kind of capture that value and keep it contained to, you know, the people who invested in the creation of it. I do think, you know, now coming back, everything, now you have to, you know, kind of talk about AI and what that means for the future of content creation. I do think there's some interesting avenues there where, as, you know, if the cost of creating content suddenly starts to head down closer to zero, or, you know, the barrier to entry becomes much lower, then, you know, I think about ways that creators and the community, you know, where there's, in situations where if a solo creator can, you know, create a movie with AI and it's just them and they, you know, they spend their time for however many years it takes, produce a movie all the time, you know, cultivating their own community, you know, what could be possible there. And I, you know, bringing it back to kind of what are ways I see, it's just like, what are ways currently that I'm interested in, I'd be interested to see how it develops, of like, you know, recently I've been kind of brought down a rabbit hole in like Instagram Reels of like, there's this whole group of people who are doing like these Lord of the Rings memes, they're mixtaping scenes and they're adding like, you know, just, it's ridiculous, and I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, so, you know, the algorithm now just feeds me these all the time. But it's like, right now that's just a fun thing that's happening, but I do think it's interesting, like, how can that remixing and reproducing and taking something that exists, making it slightly different, can that value be captured and shared more broadly is an interesting question.
What are some stories on blockchain, metaverse, or Web3 related topics that personally have interested you, whether you're skeptical or all in? Because, you know, we talked about, in your case, Byron, you're saying you write stuff and you're skeptical about, are people going to actually confirm things, you know, and Joe, in your case, haven't done podcasts, and, you know, now you're saying, yeah, you know, AI to you is more just a tool rather than it's going to be the creator. I mean, either one can start. Yes, maybe let's go with Byron because Joe just answered.
Okay, I wasn't prepared for that one. Off the top of my head, I'm going to say maybe the thing that I am maybe most hopeful that could really unlock major significant use cases in crypto broadly would be maybe on-chain identity. You know, kind of proof of humanity, which again would be an anti-AI bot thing. And then on-chain identity would hopefully then lead to under-collateralized lending. You know, you could, like right now, DeFi is not very useful because everything has to be over-collateralized, and just an over-collateralized lending system is just not super useful. But if you could combine on-chain identity with under-collateralized lending would be, you know, enabled by the on-chain identity, then I think that could take DeFi mainstream potentially.
All right, Joe.
What was the question?
Yeah.
That wasn't media related. If that had to be media related, then I failed. But that's
Well, I
I
think, you know, kind of answer it flexibly. What are some stories on blockchain, metaverse, or any Web3 related topic that personally would interest you?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I have my own kind of like stack of blockchain related media that I usually go back to, so I can just kind of go through that. Like, I'm a big fan of the Bankless podcast. Those guys are like kind of, I got into them early 2021, and I kind of like you know, they got me interested in a lot of individuals in the space, and was kind of my launch pad. Most recently, I really like the moment vicariously building a decentralized Twitter in Farcaster, but he's a really thoughtful guy, and it's a, you know, they weave in and around blockchain. It's kind of like how crypto Web3 relates to broader macro trends. So that's definitely my biggest interest area, is kind of the yeah, interesting minds thinking through how the crypto world relates and intersects with the broader world.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like for me personally, probably over the past year-ish, but definitely especially working on this conference, a couple of things that really interested me is potential application of crypto. Because, you know, here in the US, we're just kind of, oh, it's a speculative security asset, you know, oh, it's like stocks. And I was actually confused at first because people told me, yeah, you can invest it and make money like stocks. I finally realized it's kind of like if I'm speculating on the euro or the US dollar, RMB, not Tokyo, the Japanese yen, but there are actual currency uses, and we just don't need that in the US. But, you know, if you're, you know, Ukraine's being invaded, so they can't really use their currency. You know, Venezuela and Zimbabwe, they accept our currency more than their own. The Bahamas came out with the sand dollar a few years ago, and there was a hurricane that wrecked an island so badly, they actually used the digital sand dollar to make payments until they can move physical currency in and out. But it allowed people to get paid immediately and, you know, help with relief efforts versus, hey, I need physical cash, so I'm sorry, I gotta work a different job today. Your supply's gonna be a day late after this. So, and there's other things like NFTs, you know, they do help create some access that maybe, you know, physically I can't go to, you know, the Louvre, if I'm saying that right. But at least maybe through NFT or something, okay, there's some access. So I feel like my take has been, I would say a lot like yours. You know, I feel like there's a lot of tools, a lot of utility, and like Byron, I'm definitely skeptical about some applications, but at the same time, I feel like I wonder if it's more we kind of look back and think, oh, we have paper currency, of course that works, but it actually took a few hundred years to work that out. So maybe our issue is, all right, we still need 50 years to work this stuff out, but those of us who are already playing with it, we're kind of seeing all the failures, but maybe there's just different ways of not making a light bulb. So, you know, definitely, you know, I think it'd be interesting to see what happens coming up. But I know I talked a bit at the end. I just kind of want to see, do you have any closing words?
Blockchain?
Blockchain.
Yeah, blockchain.
Blockchain, all right.